Germany is peppered with castles, fortresses, and palaces, some of which you might have heard of or at least seen somewhere on Instagram. Yet there are thousands of them and just still a handful of overused images on social media. Which is why this time I'm going to show you one of the best preserved castles in the south of the country and also the best preserved one in the land of Hessen. So let's see what it looks like and where you can find this hidden gem. In the region of Hessen, perched atop the Breuberg hill in the Odenwald, which means the forest of the Odes, nothing to do with Odin by the way, lies a castle, Breuberg Castle. You can reach it by taking the train from Hanau am Main, which is very close to the city of Frankfurt, or you can just take the train from Frankfurt, but either way you will have to change until you reach a place called Höchst in Odenwald, which literally would mean the highest peak in the forest. It is a gorgeous citadel boasting 800 years of history. If you want to conquer Breuberg Castle today on a day trip or as a guest of the youth hostel, because now part of it has been turned into a youth hostel, you have to overcome the same defense as a 17th century attacker, up a long stairway, past the wall and embrasures, over the rampart and moat, through the front gate and over the bridge, and then through the lower castle gate, and finally you get into the inner bailey through the Romanesque portal. The keep made of ashlars and the Romanesque gate of the inner bailey still bear witness to the beginning. Together with a ring wall, they form a typical castle of the Hohenstaufen or Staufer period. That would be the years between 1138 and 1254, when the noble Staufen family provided the Roman German kings and emperors. So this noble family first ruled the Duchy of Swabia, but when the last male member of the Salier dynasty, Emperor Henry V, died without heirs in 1125, we are left with two people, Duke Frederick and Konrad, the two current male Staufers, who are the nephews of Henry V. Frederick attempted to succeed to the throne through a customary election, but he lost to the Saxon Duke Lothair of Supplinburg. However, just 3 years later, Lothair dies, so Friedrich's brother Konrad is elected king as Konrad III. And he was succeeded by his much more famous nephew by the name Friedrich Barbarossa, Frederick the Red-Bearded. So let me tell you a bit about the history of this castle. Breuberg Castle was probably founded around or shortly after 1200 by the Imperial Abbey of Fulda under Abbot Marquard I in order to secure Fulda's possessions in the Odenwald, such as the Höchst Monastery. The secular protectors or administrators with the title Vogt, coming from Advocatus or Reeve in English, were the locally proprieted noble lords of Lützelbach, who thereafter called themselves Lords of Breuberg. When the family of the builders died out quite soon in 1323, four noble families inherited the castle and administered it as a manorial community. So Breuberg became a so-called Ganerbenburg, a joint inheritance castle, which basically means that each family had to maintain an area of the castle and the maintenance of the fortifications as well as the well. The subsequent owners, the Counts of Erbach and the Counts of Löwenstein-Wertheim, they rather focused on domestic and representative buildings, but they also included some defensive work. Johann Casimir ordered the erection of a building entirely in the style of the Renaissance, with its adoration of antiquity, which is clearly seen in the Knights' Hall, because it is decorated with a magnificent stucco ceiling with a sequence of coats of arms of these families and their ancestors, as well as with mythological figures from Greek antiquity and a frieze of Greek and Roman gods, and they are also complemented by hidden scenes of everyday needs. So if you look at the plan, you're going to see how the citadel expanded. The Bergfried, which is the keep, was erected in about 1200. So here you can see the Kernburg, that will be the core of the fortress, and then some other developments. The towers surrounding the structure are actually from the 15th century. Wilhelmsturm, William's Tower, Michaelsturm, Michael's Tower, Roter Turm, the Red Tower, Vorderer Turm, the Front Tower. The well also dates back to the 15th century, and then there are also some other extensions, such as a chapel, an event hall, some armories, and the building in the Renaissance style from Johann Casimir I mentioned before. You can reach the citadel just by walking from the train station in Höchst, but then you're going to have to go through the village until you reach the other village and then ascend, or you can take a bus to the foot of the mountain, and then you can just the hill actually, and just ascend. But the area is very lovely. Actually, I didn't mean to visit the citadel twice, but I did visit it twice. And that was actually because I forgot I had visited it before. So I was very happy because I was meeting up with these friends for the hike. But then as we started, we went to this small and charming town of Höchst, and then we started to remember stuff. We remembered the trees, the roundabouts, the streets, so on. So yeah, then we all realized that we had actually been there 2 years before. Anyway, it was funny, but it didn't really matter in the end because the area is so wonderful that it's well worth visiting 1,000 times. In fact, we ended up exploring much more of the region, and a chill Saturday afternoon turned into a hike of about 25 kilometers, which was actually kind of accomplishing. We also reached a place called the Fairy Tale Glade, close to Höchst, where you can walk on these little bridges and small paths and just admire the miniature models that are inspired by buildings from the region, like a monastery or a post office or a hunting lodge. But most of them are actually inspired from fairy tales. For example, the Schwannenburg of Kleve, the Swan Fortress. There is a story that tells of this noble woman called Beatrix who lived in the castle over 1,000 years ago. And one day, a swan with a golden chain appeared on the Rhine, pulling a boat carrying a mysterious knight. And the knight offered to defend Beatrix's land and to marry her, but under the condition that she must never ask him his name or origin. And they lived happily until their sons pressured Beatrix to reveal the secret. When she broke the promise, the knight revealed that he was Elijah from the earthly paradise, and then he departed and took the swan with him, leaving Beatrix to die of grief the same year. So the Schwannenburg Tower is directly associated with this legend because the knight is considered the ancestor of the Dukes of Kleve. And you can find a miniature of this structure in this glade as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip into the past. If you did, I also made a video about the Lorsch Abbey from the same land of Hessen. I'm actually quite happy to share these monuments with you. And on the other hand, there is also a lot of Viking stuff on the channel, so feel free to explore. Thank you so much, and until next time.